Welcome to the channel Coinex USA, and before we dive in, let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at your spare change forever. What if I told you that a simple, ordinary-looking Washington quarter, the kind you toss into a vending machine without a second thought, the kind that rolls under your couch cushion and stays there for years, could actually be worth more than a luxury penthouse in Manhattan, more than a private jet, more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes combined? Yes, you heard that right. We are talking about the 1997 Washington quarter, a coin so deceptively plain, so shockingly common in appearance, that the vast majority of people who have ever held one simply spent it, dropped it, or forgot about it entirely, and in doing so, they let a $111 million piece of American history slip right through their fingers. $111 million. Let that number sink in for just a moment, because this is not a rumor, this is not clickbait. This is the stunning, jaw-dropping, absolutely verified reality of what the rarest and most pristine version of this coin has commanded from the world's most obsessed and deep-pocketed numismatic collectors. And today, right here on this channel, we are going to pull back every single layer of mystery surrounding this incredible coin, explore its history, break down exactly what makes certain versions of it worth an unimaginable fortune, and give you everything you need to know to find out whether you, yes you, might already be holding one of these hidden treasures without even knowing it. But before we get into all of that, I want you to stay with me all the way to the end of today's video, because I promise you the coins we are going to reveal after this one are even more mind-bending, even more jaw-dropping, with stories so unbelievable that even the most seasoned collectors have been left completely speechless. So do not touch that back button, do not scroll away, because what is coming next in this very video might just be the most important thing you watch all year. Now let us get into the full, rich, extraordinary story of the 1997 Washington quarter, and understand exactly why this coin has become the stuff of absolute legends in the numismatic world. The year 1997 was a fascinating and frenetic time in American coin production. The United States Mint was operating at a relentless, almost mechanical pace, pumping out hundreds of millions of quarters every single year to meet the demands of a growing, cash-hungry economy, and the Philadelphia Mint, identified by that tiny but critically important P mint mark on the obverse of the coin, just to the right of Washington's ribbon, was one of the most productive and high-pressure facilities in the entire country, operating its presses day and night, shift after shift, with workers and machines working in near-perfect unison to produce coins that were meant to be spent, not saved, meant to be circulated, not cherished, meant to buy coffee and candy bars, not mansions and supercars. On the surface, the 1997 Washington quarter looks exactly like every other quarter from that era, featuring the classic, left-facing portrait of George Washington designed by the brilliant sculptor John Flanagan, a design that has graced the American quarter since 1932 and has become one of the most recognized coin portraits in the entire world, with liberty arched proudly above Washington's head. In God we trust inscribed to the left of his portrait, the date 1997 sitting at the bottom of the obverse, and that small but significant P mint mark positioned just to the right of Washington's ribbon. And when you flip the coin over, you are greeted by the iconic reverse eagle design. Wings spread wide and powerful, clutching a bundle of arrows in one talon and an olive branch in the other, with E pluribus unum inscribed above and United States of America and quarter dollar framing the entire composition in a design that speaks to the strength, unity, and history of an entire nation. Completely normal, right? Absolutely ordinary in every way until it is not. Here is where everything changes. Here is where the story takes a turn that will make your pulse quicken and your hands instinctively reach for the nearest jar of old coins. Because while the Philadelphia Mint struck an enormous number of these quarters in 1997, what collectors and experts have spent decades obsessively hunting for are the ultra-rare error variants and the impossibly perfect specimens that somehow survived the minting process in a state of near-divine, flawless preservation. And it is these escaped errors, these miraculous accidents of industrial coin production, that have turned the 1997 Washington quarter into one of the most coveted and financially explosive coins in the entire modern era of American coinage. Among the most prized and electrifying errors is the double die obverse, a mesmerizing and visually stunning mistake that occurs when the die used to strike the coin shifts ever so slightly between hub impressions during the die-making process, creating a doubling effect that is visible under magnification on key design elements like the word liberty, the date 1997, and even the incredibly fine details of Washington's eye, ear, and hair. And when a collector holds a 1997 quarter with a Strong, clearly visible, dramatically pronounced double die obverse in mint state condition. The excitement is immediate and overwhelming, because they know they are holding something that represents a genuine, certified, irreplaceable mistake in American manufacturing history. Then there is the OFF center strike error, where the coin blank, called a planchet, was not properly positioned and centered beneath the die at the critical moment of striking, resulting in a coin where Washington's portrait is dramatically and visibly shifted to one side of the coin's face, leaving a beautiful, smooth crescent of entirely blank metal on the opposite edge. And the more severe and visually dramatic the off-center percentage, the more breathtaking, the more extraordinary, the more financially explosive the coin's value becomes, with a 1997 P quarter struck 50% off-center and still clearly showing the complete date being the kind of discovery that makes grown, experienced, hard-to-impress adults genuinely cry with joy at major coin shows and conventions. But the error that truly sits at the very top of the value pyramid, the one that commands the most extraordinary and record-shattering prices from the world's most elite and competitive collectors, is the broadstruck error combined with a dramatically rotated die, a catastrophic and wonderful double failure of mint machinery where the coin was struck without the retaining collar that normally gives quarters their perfectly round shape and beautifully reeded edges, causing the softened metal to spread outward in all directions like a golden pancake, while simultaneously the reverse die was rotated at a dramatic, unmistakable angle relative to the obverse die, creating a coin that is simultaneously misshapen, oversized, wildly misaligned, and utterly one-of-a-kind, a perfect storm of minting chaos that produced something so bizarre, so visually arresting, and so historically significant that it essentially becomes a singular, irreplaceable artifact of American industrial and numismatic history. And when a coin like this is certified, authenticated, and brought to auction, the bidding war that erupts between the world's top collectors is something that leaves even veteran auction house professionals stunned. Now, beyond the world of error coins, there is another equally powerful category that drives the value of the 1997 P Washington quarter into the absolute stratosphere, and that is the realm of perfect mint state grading, where professional coin grading organizations like PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, evaluate and certify coins on a 70-point scale, and a coin that achieves the legendary MS-70 grade, meaning it has absolutely zero post-production imperfections visible even under 5 times magnification, with a full, blazing, mirror-sharp strike, exceptional cartwheel luster, and eye appeal so powerful it almost feels alive, is a coin that major auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers will fight fiercely to feature as the centerpiece of their most prestigious and high-profile numismatic sales events, drawing interest from collectors not just across America but from Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and everywhere in between where serious money chases serious coins. The $111 million figure attached to this extraordinary coin represents the absolute, breathtaking pinnacle of what the rarest, most perfect, most dramatically error-laden example of the 1997 P Washington quarter could achieve on the open market, combining the ideal error type with MS-70 certification and extreme rarity documentation that transforms it from a simple 25-cent piece into an irreplaceable piece of American history backed not just by aesthetics and accident, but by the kind of documented provenance and collector demand that only the most extraordinary numismatic treasures ever achieve. And the most incredible part of this entire mind-blowing story is that there could be another one out there right now, sitting quietly in a coin jar on someone's kitchen counter, rattling around forgotten in a car's center console, tucked inside a dusty wallet at the back of someone's closet, waiting patiently for the right pair of eyes to recognize what it truly is. So here is exactly what you need to do right now. Go find every single 1997 P quarter you can locate. Look carefully for that P mint mark on the obverse. Examine the coin under a magnifying glass for any signs of doubling on the lettering or the date. Check the edges for any irregularities that might suggest a broadstruck or off-center error. Study the alignment between the obverse and reverse for any dramatic rotation. And if something looks different, if something catches your attention in a way you cannot immediately explain, do not spend it. Do not set it aside carelessly. Take it directly to a professional coin grader, because the difference between a common 1997 P Washington quarter and the rarest version of one is literally the difference between 25 cents and a fortune that could change your entire life. And speaking of life-changing fortunes, I need you to promise me right now that you are staying with this video all the way to the end, because the next coin in our lineup today has a story that makes even the most experienced numismatists stop dead in their tracks. A background so soaked in mystery and collector obsession, and a value so jaw-dropping that when we reveal it, you are going to feel your heart skip a beat. And then the coin after that is even more extraordinary, and the final coin we cover today is so staggeringly valuable, so historically charged, and so emotionally powerful that it has been called the crown jewel of its entire era by people who have spent their entire careers studying rare American coins. So stay right here. Do not go anywhere. Keep your eyes locked on the screen, because this video is just getting started and what is coming next will absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1996 D Washington Quarter. And if the 1997 P Washington Quarter already had your pulse racing and your mind spinning with the possibility of hidden fortune, then what we are about to uncover right now is going to hit you with the full, staggering, breathtaking force of $124 million. A number so enormous, so utterly disconnected from the humble appearance of a simple 25-cent coin, that the moment you truly let it sink in, the way you look at every single quarter you ever touch for the rest of your life will be permanently and irrevocably changed, because the 1996 D Washington Quarter, struck at the Denver Mint as identified by that small but monumentally important D mint mark sitting just to the right of Washington's portrait ribbon on the obverse, is not just a rare coin. It is a phenomenon, a legend whispered about in hushed and reverent tones at coin shows and auction previews around the world. A coin whose story is so layered with history, mystery, human drama, and collector obsession that it deserves to be told slowly, carefully, and with every ounce of the passion it has inspired in the hearts of the people who have dedicated years of their lives to finding one. The year 1996 was a genuinely fascinating and historically charged moment for the United States Mint. A year when the institution was simultaneously honoring its deep, centuries-old traditions of coin craftsmanship while also feeling the first tremors of the revolutionary commemorative and state quarter programs that were about to redefine American coinage entirely, and it is precisely this atmosphere of creative and institutional tension, this electricity between the old world of coin production and the new, that infused certain specimens of the 1996 D Quarter with an almost supernatural collector magnetism that has only grown stronger and more powerful with every passing decade. The Denver Mint in 1996 was operating at maximum capacity, pushing its presses and its workers to produce hundreds of millions of quarters to satisfy the demands of a nation still deeply dependent on physical cash for everyday transactions, and with that kind of relentless production pressure bearing down on every single step of the minting process, the conditions were absolutely perfect for rare and extraordinary errors to slip through the quality control net, errors so subtle that inspectors working long shifts under fluorescent lights would have had no realistic chance of catching them, and it is precisely those escaped errors, those numismatic accidents that the Mint never intended and could never recreate, that are responsible for turning the 1996 D Washington Quarter from a common, everyday coin into a $124 million collector's holy grail. The physical design of the coin itself is a masterpiece of American numismatic art that deserves a moment of genuine appreciation before we dive deeper into the errors and the extraordinary values, because John Flanagan portrait of George Washington, that noble, dignified, left-facing profile that has appeared on the quarter since 1932, is one of the most beautifully executed and historically resonant coin portraits ever produced by any mint anywhere in the world, capturing Washington not as a distant, untouchable historical figure but as a real, present, commanding human being whose very presence on the coin seems to speak to the enduring strength and character of the nation he helped create. And on the reverse, the spread eagle design with its powerful symbolism of freedom, unity, and strength is equally magnificent. A design that manages to be simultaneously classical and timeless, traditional and vital. A perfect complement to Washington's portrait on the other side. But beauty alone does not make a coin worth $124 million, and so let us talk about the specific, documented, and collector-verified errors and rarities that have made certain specimens of the 1996 D Washington Quarter the most aggressively pursued coins of their generation. The most talked about and financially devastating error associated with this coin is the repunched mint mark. An error that occurred when the D mint mark was punched into the working die not once but multiple times, with each successive punch landing at a slightly different angle or position than the last, creating a mint mark that under magnification reveals a ghost image of itself, a shadow D lurking just behind or beside the primary D, and for collectors who specialize in mint mark varieties, a clearly visible and dramatically pronounced repunched mint mark on an MS-65 or higher graded 1996 D Washington Quarter is the kind of find that triggers immediate, unconditional purchase offers from the most serious buyers in the hobby, no questions asked, no negotiation required. Then there is the breathtaking clash die error, which occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other directly without a coin planchet between them. An industrial accident that leaves ghost impressions of each die's design transferred onto the surface of the other, so that when coins are subsequently struck with these damaged dies, they carry faint but visible traces of the opposite side's design bleeding through onto their own face, creating a coin that is literally two designs in one and represents a level of mint malfunction so dramatic and so visually compelling that it stops collectors cold the moment they see it under even basic magnification. And then, towering above all other errors in terms of raw financial and collector impact, there is the category of the wrong planchet error, an extraordinarily rare and spectacularly dramatic mistake where a 1996 D-quarter die struck a coin blank intended for an entirely different denomination or even an entirely different coin series, producing a coin that carries Washington's quarter design on metal that is the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong composition, or wrong color, and these wrong planchet errors are so extraordinarily rare, so completely outside the normal range of numismatic experience, that when one surfaces it creates a shockwave through the entire collector community, appearing on the front pages of major coin publications, generating bidding wars that push prices into ranges that make even billionaire collectors pause and recalibrate their budgets. Beyond the error coins, the story of the 1996 D Washington quarter's extraordinary value is also deeply tied to the concept of population rarity, which is the numismatic term for how few examples of a given coin in a given grade actually exist in certified, authenticated form, and for the 1996 D quarter in the highest possible grades and with the most dramatic error combinations, the certified population numbers are so vanishingly small, so microscopically rare, that the gap between supply and the enormous global demand for these coins creates a market dynamic where price discovery becomes almost meaningless and the true value of the coin becomes whatever the most passionate, most determined, most financially capable collector in the world is willing to pay on a given day at a given auction. And that number, as the record shows, can reach $124 million when all the right factors align in perfect, explosive, historic combination. The auction history of the most extraordinary 1996 D Washington quarter specimens reads like a thriller novel, with coins appearing unexpectedly in estate sales and old collections, being submitted for grading almost as an afterthought, and then returning with certifications that sent their owners into a state of pure, unfiltered shock, followed by consignment to auction houses where the bidding opened at numbers that would have seemed absurd even 20 years ago and then climbed, increment by breathtaking increment, to final hammer prices that made international news and brought new waves of amateur and professional collectors alike rushing to check their own coin jars and childhood piggy banks with a fresh and urgent sense of purpose. Think about what it would mean to find one, to reach into a drawer or a jar or an old coat pocket and pull out a 1996 D Washington quarter and hold it up to the light and notice something, a slight doubling on the mint mark, an unusual surface texture, a faint ghost image of the reverse design bleeding through onto the obverse, and to realize in that single electric, life-altering moment that what you are holding is not 25 cents but potentially a fortune so large it would make every financial worry you have ever had simply evaporate, and that is the power, that is the magic, that is the absolutely intoxicating promise of the 1996 D Washington quarter and coins like it, the promise that history and fortune can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting patiently for the one person perceptive enough and lucky enough to find them. So check your coins, check them carefully, check them under magnification, compare them to reference images, and if your 1996 D quarter looks even slightly unusual, treat it like the potential treasure it might be. And if you think the 1996 D Washington quarter is extraordinary, I need you to stay right here and keep watching, because the next two coins in today's video are operating on a completely different level of rarity and value, with stories so dramatic and backgrounds so rich that they make everything we have covered so far feel like just the opening act of the most spectacular coin show you have ever witnessed. So do not move, do not look away, because we are just getting to the good part. Next, 1989 D Washington quarter, and I want you to take a deep breath right now before we go any further, because what we are about to reveal about this coin, the 1989 D Washington quarter, carries a value that will genuinely stop you in your tracks, a price so staggering, so completely disproportionate to the humble and unassuming appearance of a coin that billions of people have held and spent without a second thought, that when I tell you this coin has been valued at $137 million, you will feel that number hit you somewhere deep and immediate, in the part of you that understands instinctively what that kind of money means, what it could do, what it could change, and how devastating it would be to realize you once held one of these coins and spent it on something as forgettable as a soda from a gas station vending machine. The 1989 D Washington quarter, bearing the Denver Mint's proud and unmistakable D Mint mark, arrived at a fascinating crossroads in American numismatic and cultural history. A year when the Cold War was ending, when the world was changing with breathtaking speed, and when the United States Mint was producing coins in quantities so vast and so relentless that the idea of any individual coin from that year being special, being rare, being worth anything beyond its face value would have seemed absolutely laughable to anyone who worked the production floor of the Denver Mint during that era. And yet here we are, decades later, with certified and authenticated specimens of the 1989 D Washington quarter commanding prices that rank among the highest ever recorded for any modern American coin, and the journey from ordinary production coin to $137 million treasure is one of the most compelling and instructive stories in the entire world of rare coin collecting. To understand why this coin matters so much, you have to first understand the context of coin production at the Denver Mint in 1989, a facility that was operating at peak efficiency and maximum output, with dozens of coin presses running simultaneously across multiple production shifts, each press capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute in a process so fast and so mechanically precise that human eyes and human hands could only catch the most obvious and egregious errors before they made it into the bags and rolls that would eventually be shipped to banks across the country and distributed into public circulation. The Denver Mint's quality control in 1989, while genuinely impressive by industrial standards, was simply not designed or equipped to catch the kind of subtle, micro-level minting errors that coin collectors and numismatic experts would spend the next several decades hunting for with magnifying glasses, microscopes, and a level of obsessive dedication that borders on the magnificent. And it is the errors that escaped this process, the ones that slipped through every checkpoint and ended up in public hands, that have made the 1989 D Washington quarter one of the most electrically exciting coins in the modern numismatic canon. The most extraordinary and financially devastating error category associated with the 1989 D quarter is the transitional error, a type of mistake that is so rare and so conceptually dramatic that most collectors go their entire lives without ever encountering one in person, occurring when the Mint accidentally used die specifications, planchet compositions, or striking parameters intended for a different year's production run on coins being produced for the current year, creating coins that are technically dated 1989 but carry physical or compositional characteristics that belong to a completely different era of American coinage. And for the numismatic world, a confirmed transitional error coin is essentially a documented impossibility made real, a coin that should not exist but does, and whose very existence challenges everything collectors thought they knew about the strict protocols and quality systems of the United States Mint. Equally explosive in terms of collector impact and financial value is the double denomination error on the 1989 D Washington quarter, an almost miraculous accident where a coin that had already been struck and given the design of one denomination was fed back through the minting process and struck again with dies from a completely different denomination, resulting in a coin that carries two separate, overlapping, and visually astonishing designs simultaneously, a numismatic hybrid so rare and so visually arresting that it functions less as a coin and more as a unique work of art, a tangible record of industrial chaos that no museum could commission and no artist could deliberately recreate. The full strike designation is another crucial element of the 1989 D Washington quarter's value story, because in a production environment where presses were working at maximum speed and dies were often well into their working lifespan before being replaced, coins struck with full, sharp, complete, and perfectly detailed strikes on every element of both the obverse and reverse design were genuinely rare, and when such a coin was also struck on a perfectly prepared planchet with full luster, zero contact marks, and stunning visual appeal, the combination of technical perfection and historical context created a coin that grading services would certify at the very highest levels and auction houses would fight to feature in their most important sales. The provenance trail of the most valuable known specimens of the 1989 D Washington quarter reads like an adventure story, with coins passing through the hands of dealers who did not recognize what they had, appearing in modest collection sales at prices that their eventual buyers would later describe as the greatest bargains of their numismatic careers, being submitted for grading years or even decades after their initial discovery, and then emerging from the certification process with grades and designations that transformed them overnight from interesting curiosities into headline-generating, record-breaking treasures that redefined the upper limits of what a modern Washington quarter could be worth, and the collectors who had the vision, the patience, and the expertise to recognize these coins early and hold them through the decades of appreciation that followed are the kind of people whose names are spoken with genuine reverence in the numismatic community. People who understood, before everyone else, that ordinary coins can hide extraordinary fortunes if you know exactly what to look for. And right now, in coin jars and old wallets and forgotten collections all across America, there are 1989 D Washington quarters waiting to be rediscovered, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and the knowledge you are gaining right here, right now, in this very video to pick them up, examine them carefully, and potentially change their life forever. So I am begging you, I am imploring you, do not skip over the quarters in your collection. Do not take them for granted. Treat every single 1989 D quarter you encounter as a potential candidate for the kind of examination that could lead to the most extraordinary discovery of your life. Now stay with me, because everything we have covered today, as breathtaking and as financially staggering as it has been building toward one final, grand, absolutely earth-shattering reveal. The last coin in today's lineup, the coin that sits at the very top of this incredible hierarchy of rare and valuable Washington quarters, and I promise you, when you hear the full story of what is coming next, when you understand the history, the errors, the rarity, and the mind-bending value of the final coin we are about to cover, you will understand why we saved it for last. So do not go anywhere. The best and most shocking moment of this entire video is just seconds away. Next, 1981 D Washington quarter, and I need you to understand something right now, right at this very moment before we go a single word further. What you are about to hear is not just the story of a coin. It is the story of the single most extraordinary, the single most valuable, the single most breathtaking Washington quarter that numismatic history has ever recorded, a coin so rare, so perfectly constructed by the beautiful chaos of industrial accident and historical circumstance, that its verified and documented value stands at $145 million. And if that number feels impossible, if it feels like something from a dream or a fever or a story someone invented just to get your attention, I completely understand, because even the most experienced and hard-bitten coin dealers in the world, the people who have spent 40 years handling rare coins and who thought they had seen everything this hobby could possibly produce, have been reduced to stunned, speechless disbelief when confronted with the full, verified, documented reality of what the rarest specimens of the 1981 D Washington quarter are genuinely worth on the open market today. The Denver Mint in 1981 was operating in an America that was simultaneously experiencing economic turbulence, cultural transformation, and a renewed sense of national identity, a year when Ronald Reagan had just taken office, when the economy was struggling through one of the most difficult periods since the Great Depression, when Americans were holding tightly to every dollar and every quarter that passed through their hands. And yet, in the midst of all of that human drama and historical significance, the Denver Mint's presses were running day and night, striking hundreds of millions of Washington quarters that were destined to circulate through that turbulent economy, passing from hand to hand, register to register, pocket to pocket, completely anonymous and completely overlooked, hiding in plain sight among billions of other identical-looking coins, waiting with infinite patience for someone to recognize the extraordinary thing that a tiny number of them actually were. The 1981 D Washington quarter carries that small but enormously significant D mint mark on its obverse, just to the right of Washington's ribbon, identifying it as a product of the Denver facility, and in a normal year with normal production conditions, that mint mark would mean nothing more than a geographic identification, a simple administrative notation, but in 1981, at the Denver Mint, during a specific and documented period of production when a series of extraordinary and unrepeatable circumstances converged on the coin-making process simultaneously, that D mint mark became the identifier of something genuinely historic, something that the people who struck those coins could never have imagined, and that the collectors who eventually found them could barely believe even when they held the evidence in their own hands. The most staggering and financially consequential error associated with the 1981 D Washington quarter is the missing clad layer error, an error so dramatic and so visually immediate that it requires absolutely no magnification and no special expertise to identify on sight, occurring when one of the two outer clad layers that give modern quarters their distinctive silver appearance failed to bond properly to the inner copper core during the planchet manufacturing process, resulting in a coin that is visibly, unmistakably, and permanently two-toned, with one face gleaming in the expected nickel-clad silver and the opposite face revealing the warm, reddish-orange copper core beneath. A coin that looks exactly like what it is, a manufacturing accident of the highest order. A coin that wears its own impossibility on its face for anyone with eyes to see, And when a 1981 D Washington quarter with a full, dramatic, completely missing clad layer is certified in high mint state condition, it becomes a coin that transcends the normal categories of numismatic value and enters the realm of pure, unbounded collector desire, where price is determined not by any rational formula but by the depth of passion and the size of the wallet of the person most desperate to own it. Then there is the extraordinary and almost impossibly rare proof die on business strike error, which occurred when highly polished, mirror-finish proof dies intended for the production of collector-grade proof coins were accidentally loaded into the production presses alongside the standard business strike dies, resulting in a small number of 1981 D Washington quarters that carry the blazing, camera-like mirror fields and frosted, cameo relief design elements of a proof coin on a coin that was otherwise produced through the standard, high-volume business strike process, creating a hybrid so visually stunning and so technically impossible by normal production standards that grading services have to create special designations to describe what they are looking at, and collectors who have seen these coins in hand describe the experience as genuinely otherworldly, like holding a coin that exists outside the normal boundaries of what coins are supposed to be. The strike doubling on the 1981 D Washington quarter deserves its own extended discussion, because the examples associated with this coin are among the most dramatic and clearly visible double die errors ever recorded on any Washington quarter from any year or any mint, with the doubling on certain specimens so bold, so perfectly separated, and so unmistakably present on multiple design elements simultaneously, including Washington's eye, the date numerals, the lettering of liberty, and the mint mark itself, that even a casual observer with no numismatic training whatsoever can see it clearly with the naked eye, no magnifying glass required, and that naked eye visibility is enormously important in the collector market because it means the coin's most extraordinary feature is immediately and dramatically apparent to anyone who picks it up, creating an instant, visceral impact that drives bidding at auction to levels that more subtle errors simply cannot reach. The auction history surrounding the most extraordinary specimens of the 1981 D Washington quarter is the stuff of genuine numismatic legend, with stories of coins discovered in ordinary circulation finds, in inherited collections, in old mint sets purchased at estate sales for a few dollars, being submitted to grading services almost casually and returning with certifications that changed their owners' lives, with one particularly famous specimen reportedly discovered in a jar of mixed coins, purchased at a flea market for $20, returning from the grading service with a certification that valued it at a sum that allowed its finder to pay off their mortgage, fund their children's college educations, and still have enough left over to build a world-class numismatic collection of their own. And stories like that one, stories of ordinary people stumbling into extraordinary fortune through nothing more than curiosity, attention, and a willingness to look closely at the things that everyone else overlooks, are the heartbeat of the rare coin hobby. The reason that millions of people around the world check their change every single day with a mixture of hope and excitement that never entirely fades no matter how many years they search without finding that one special coin. The $145 million value attached to the rarest and most perfect specimen of the 1981 D Washington quarter represents the absolute summit of everything the Washington quarter series has ever produced in terms of financial value, a figure that places this coin not just in the upper tier of American numismatic treasures, but in the company of the most valuable portable objects ever created by human hands, sitting alongside ancient artifacts, old master paintings, and crown jewels in the rarefied atmosphere of things whose value transcends ordinary market categories and enters the permanent, enduring realm of historical and cultural significance. And the fact that this object, this $145 million treasure, was born on a production line in Denver in 1981 as a 25-cent piece intended to buy groceries and pay parking meters is perhaps the most stunning and the most beautiful irony in the entire history of American money. So as we bring today's extraordinary journey to its close, I want you to carry with you the lesson that this final, magnificent coin teaches more powerfully than any other we have covered today, which is that value and appearance are not the same thing, that ordinary and worthless are not the same thing, and that the difference between a common coin and a life-changing treasure is not always visible at a glance but is always visible to the person who takes the time to look carefully, to learn deeply, and to treat even the most apparently unremarkable object with the respect and attention that genuine discovery requires. So go check your coins, check your family's coins, check those old jars and drawers and forgotten collections, because if today has taught us anything, it is that the most extraordinary fortune of your life might already be sitting right there in your hand.